All right, I'll call this meeting to order. Roll call, Jenny? Here. Glenn?
Here.
Merle?
Here.
Kelsey?
Here.
Robert? Oh, he's probably on I-5. Blake?
Here.
Chair here. Join me for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd entertain a motion for the agenda consideration. So moved. Do I hear a second?
One second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any public comment? Board communication. High school ASB student representatives.
Hi, good afternoon. I just want to apologize really quick. I wasn't able to get the Google Doc finished. But if you still would like it, like I could get it done for you guys anytime this week.
I'm good. You do not have to apologize. You have had such a busy week.
Yeah.
Do not worry whatsoever. Verbal is totally fine.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. To start us off, Skills USA has no recent updates or events.
And then for the planning committee, the date was moved to April 4th, 2026. And we currently do have a venue. The sales are, we're doing a carnation sale fundraiser during lunch, to help fundraise. And, we're planning a St. Patrick's Day fundraiser currently.
And then last week, FFA competed at St. Paul and did some interview contests. There was 3 participants and they all placed, and then one of them placed first place.
Ooh, nice.
So for Keith Club, they're running a book drive to help supply primary school children for Literacy Day on February 27th. And donations can be dropped off at the high school and primary school office.
And also NHS has their blood drive coming up, which is next Thursday, February 19th at the high school. We have nearly met our goal, but those who are interested in donating are welcome to check in with me. I can take down your information and we can fit you right in whenever you'd like. And we really do appreciate your support.
FBLA week is being done at our school, and state competition will be held April 9th through 11th in Eugene.
For your book, the students are still putting their extra time in outside of class to produce the book. And they're actively always looking for images or stories about our students or communities. So if you know any, you can reach out to Mrs. Bailey or any yearbook student.
Winter formal was last Saturday, February 7th, and ASB created a spirit week to have everyone excited for the dance, and it went well with the sophomore class winning the spirit points this week. And the junior class parents set up an Italian soda stand as a fundraiser at the dance.
Metro has no recent updates or events.
And Drama recently had a dessert theater production on January 24th, which they sold over 200 tickets, and they were $5 per ticket. And their new spring show will be Robin Hood, the official dates being April 10th and 11th at 7 p.m.
National Art Honor Society is going on a field trip this Thursday to the Schnitzer Gallery.
And May Day plans are underway. The theme for this year is Candyland.
Inspired.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And that's all we have for you guys today.
Yeah. Oh, also this is kind of like out of but last week we did these like hearts and put every student's name on there, and we put them in the Husky Den, and everyone liked it.
Oh, wow.
Everybody stood there and like they were just like looking for their name and they thought it was a really good idea.
Oh, that is cute.
That
is nice. Do you guys have a theme for prom yet?
Yeah, the theme is, it's like Golden Gala into the night, like a night in Paris.
Oh,
That's what we
okay.
came up with, yeah.
Nice.
And that's it for
That's it
my
for-
presentation.
That's so cute.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all you do.
Thank you. Hope you guys have a great night.
You too. Have a good one.
Yeah.
So we'll acknowledge that there is an extended overnight field trip for FFA, March 18th through the 22nd in Redmond. And also an extended overnight field trip for FBLA, April 9th through the 11th in Eugene. Moving on, we'll go to consent agenda. If you've had a chance to review, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Good job on the minutes.
Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carries. District operation reports.
All right, next two items are for you, Des.
All right. So, the first is I want to just give you a quick update on the health materials adoption process. Last year, we did postpone the process, just to give ourselves a little time. There was a lot happening kind of in the spring, and we felt it was better to give ourselves a little time. Just as a reminder, the adoption of materials as a part of a state requirement, so it falls under Division 22. And there's some specific qualifications within Division 22 about what we have to do. So for example, we need to make sure we give opportunities for public input. We have to adopt within a timeline established by the board. That was actually last year. So part of our Division 22 requirements is we had to let them know that we were postponing by 1 year. We have 2 years to make the final adoption. So we have this year, we have to finish it, or we can finish it next year. And we just have to keep the state up to date, like too many this. And then we can, the state provides us a list of approved materials. And we can adopt off that list, or we can do what's called an independent adoption. And if we do an independent adoption, we have to then certify that we have gone through the same steps that the state went through to approve the materials that we select. And it's a really extensive process, so we usually try to just adopt off the state list because the effort it would take to be able to approve it is usually not necessarily worth it. But if we really had something we loved and it wasn't on the list, there is a process that we can use. So we're having some issues though with health, and that is namely twofold. One is that because of budget constraints, at this point, we are not planning on actually purchasing the materials. And we have materials that we're currently using that are working well, and so the feeling is like, we don't want to spend money considering all the things we could be spending money on. There were really limited approved materials this year by the state, so there was, I'll actually go through the list, but there was just a few, like literally a few, and only at the middle school. Every other one only had one in each of the areas. And that the lack of funds means that we don't have, like I said, don't have a plan to actually make a purchase. So what we're doing is kind of debating, like, how do we best use our time and energy, considering that we have a state requirement to say that this is what we've adopted, but we don't actually plan on spending any money on it. So that's what we're debating right now. These are the materials that were approved by the state. So K5, there's only one thing that was approved by the state, it's the Great Body Shop. It's what we're currently using. 6 through 8, there were 3 different items that were approved by the state, and 9, 12, there was only one that was approved by the state. Part of it is there are some companies that have said, oh, we've made updates to our, like the state gives them feedback if they don't get approved. And they've made updates to get into a state alignment, but we would still have to do an independent approval process to select any of those materials. We before we had postponed the process last year, we did have our middle school start the process, get a sample of all 3 of their approved materials and narrowed it down to like 2 that they were looking at. But beyond that, since it was just 1 and 1, we brought it to them like, well, this is what it would be. There's not a choice here, actually. So what we'd like to do is go through the process so that we can say we've officially selected one, but make it very clear to families that we are not going to be purchasing these materials. So we would start that by having the middle school narrow down their 3 options to 1 or 2 that are potentials. Then we would advertise to families that those materials are available for review. We'd have them out during parent-teacher conferences and any sort of major event, music performances, etc. So usually what we do is we set out a big table and then we have a QR code where families, after they look through the materials, can scan it and give us feedback on anything. We also will send out a communication to families that provides information for all these online. All of these have parent portal access so that families can read through what the curriculum is about. The Great Body Shop, for example, you can actually click on it and it will give you a list of every single lesson K through, well, we use it K5, so it gives you every lesson K5. And that way they have the opportunity to give us feedback, which meets that requirement. And then we would select from that approved list and bring it to you guys for approval with the knowledge that we won't be making any purchase. So we're gonna try to keep the scope of the actual normal process for teachers narrower, but still make sure we're giving families an opportunity to give us feedback. So the biggest component, and this is something that we'll work on doing next year, is actually more around how do we communicate with our families, what is happening in our health classes. It's really beyond what the materials are doing and more about what are the lessons, what is the scope and sequence. And so our hope is, especially since there are new standards that were adopted, I think 2 years ago. Usually anytime when the adoption process comes up for new materials, the year before is when they adopted new standards. So having an opportunity for those curriculum, those teachers to get together to discuss those standards, make their maps, and then pushing those out to families so that they know what are we teaching, what is the process if you have questions, and what are our policies around, because health is a big one. If we have any opt-out options for families, health is usually where we get those requests. So making sure we're just doing a better job of communicating with our families, what is actually happening in our classroom, which goes beyond the materials, that's just good practice. So that will be our focus for next year, but we'll have the adoption part done. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Does the approved list change every year?
No, it changes every 7 years. So they would give us the approved list and then in 7 years, they go and they review materials again and give us a new list to choose from.
So we wouldn't be changing materials really until 2027, 2028?
No, even further. We
28.
wouldn't be changing materials at all until it's last year would be 2025 plus 7 years, so 2032
Okay,
would be the next time we would potentially have an option for buying.
so what we have currently meets the state standards, so we're not really doing anything.
Right, it meets the state standards, and if there are new standards that it doesn't cover, we would have like supplemental materials that we can purchase. But that piece, we don't have to go through the state and the full adoption process on it. Yeah.
But you still would need to go through by 2027, the adoption process.
Yeah, and that's what I'm proposing right now. So our process of bringing out because there's only those 2 sets of materials that are automatic, right? Great Body Shop and the kinesthetic. We'd set those out and then we'd narrow it down to 2 for the middle school, set those out so families can give us feedback. And then we would select one of those and then we bring those 3 to the board for approval.
And you call that kinesthetic?
I think that's what it's. Kinetics.
Yeah.
You mean kinetics.
Kinetic.
Yes.
And I couldn't make much sense out of motion and causes in physics or biology or anything else, but I'll rest that. But what I was going to ask was, you mentioned independent adoption and
Yes.
that very few choices. And some publishers might be able to upgrade and then be one of those who would be approved without going through the, totally going it on your own to meet all the parameters or standards.
No, unfortunately, once the approved list from the state comes out, they don't change that list. So when the other publishers got rejected initially, they got feedback from the state. And then they said, well, we went and added things to it, so we now meet the state standards. But the state did not approve them, so we'd have to still do a full independent review of the new materials to see if they actually did meet the new standards. Cause that's just the publisher saying, the state said we didn't, trust us, we do now, because we added a section in there. And I am hesitant to that. I worked at the state, one of my moments that I had when I worked closely with publishers and I literally watched this happen is we saw textbooks. I was helping the science department as they were doing their review. This was way back about 15 years ago. They were doing their review. Just as the review started, Next Generation Science Standards came out and we saw publishers take the exact same book and stuck a sticker on it that said Next Generation Science, and said, now it's Next Generation Science. It's like, no, it's not, it's just a sticker, So publishers it takes when a publisher can turn around like 3 weeks after getting feedback and say, our books now meet, I wonder what did you throw together and stick at the back of the book to say you're fine? Those are books that they publish, that they're buying, it takes a lot to publish a book. So I'm really hesitant to any company that suddenly met according to them.
And the burden of proof is still on you.
It's
So
still on us. We'd have to prove that we looked it through them. We'd have to prove we went through the process and that they met the new standards. And of all the things right now, especially because we're not gonna buy, of all the things I wanna spend teachers' times on, that is just not one of them.
right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? Robert? Blake? Glenn? Yeah. Good. All right,
All right,
thanks.
so we'll keep you posted and probably be bringing something in the spring.
Okay,
Anything for this thing again?
You're up again.
All right.
twofer.
So, Dan let you guys know that the calendar is, coming up for review, and just like normal, we bring a group of teachers and community members together to review the calendar. So first, I will put a plug in if there's anyone on the board that would like to serve on that team, or if you know community members who would be interested, we will be sending out a survey here, probably pretty quick, to the, community, and letting them know if you're interested in serving, as well as asking some questions about the calendar. And so, we hope to gather names, but if you know of anyone, please throw them a name to me and I can reach out to them and give them a personal invitation. The calendar team is one where we sometimes struggle to get people on it. The good news, I think, is right now, the last 2 years, we've been working off a really good calendar and we've gotten really good feedback. So I think we have a good foundation for this next year's worth of work. So I'm not too stressed about it. But we did want to bring to your guys' attention this year, the Labor Day dilemma. And it is a dilemma across the state. Do we start before Labor Day or do we start after Labor Day? Traditionally at North Marion, we started after Labor Day. But I will tell you, this year, if we start after Labor Day, it will push our end date very late. So right now, starting after Labor Day, for students, that would be September 8th. And for our staff, that'd be August 31st. And approximately, we have to, these are just approximate numbers. The start dates are pretty set because it's after Labor Day, but our end dates would depend on a few different things like where, some impacted by negotiations, et cetera. But conceptually, it would be around June 17th. This year, actually, it's even more complex, specifically because where June 17th hits and then where Juneteenth hits, which is we have to be closed as a federal holiday, means that staff would have a day off on Monday, have to come back and we'd be a day short, so they'd have to actually do 2 extra days to get to June 22nd. And then graduation would be June 11th. if we start before Labor Day, students would start on approximately August 31st, staff would be on the 24th, and then we'd be done by June 11th, staff would be done on June 14th, and graduation would be June 4th. I will also point out this year, last 2 years, we've done a 2-year calendar. And this year, we're hoping to do a 2-year calendar again, and next year, so 27, 28 looks exactly like this. The calendars line up, and in fact, it's only like a day off dates wise. It's like September 7th versus September 8th for after Labor Day start. So there's our dilemma. Diane did some sleuthing actually, and we're seeing that everyone is divided in terms of districts. These are just the initial ones. We're still waiting on a few folks. Woodburn has always started before Labor Day, so that's not shocking. But some of these, this is a definite shift for them in terms of practice. And so we just wanted to let you guys kind of see that. Dan, did you?
Yeah, this came up at the last month's superintendent's meeting and, people were like, what are you doing? Because this is the dilemma. And so, and the McMinnville superintendent brought up that they've been doing something there that we might consider doing here for their calendar committees is that if Labor Day is the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, you start after Labor Day. If it's the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th, you start before Labor Day. And so that way that calendar committee is not always wrestling with this issue. Although she's been in that district a very long time, she says, you'd be surprised at how much argument happened over what happens on September 4th. Which direction does that one go? But anyways, so that might be something we consider doing just so it's kind of baked into the process and that way we can know which direction and give direction to the calendar committee, so.
And that would be a decision you guys would probably make after we
Yes.
start the calendar committee though, so we would need
Yeah.
to make a decision. We just wanted to let you know what we're thinking right now in terms of our process. So right now, we're really hoping to gather some feedback from our community. Labor Day has always been a question on our feedback, survey that we give, so this will be a typical question from them. We're gonna then bring that feedback back to the board so that we can kind of say, hey, our community is saying this versus that, so you guys can hear that and then help us make a decision. Then we're gonna bring our calendar team together. Like I said, it's made up of teachers, administrators, classified folks, and hopefully some community members. Though I will say a lot of the people who volunteer for the team are kind of dual hats. They both live in the community and are teachers. And then usually what we do is have 1, maybe 2 calendars that we can then share with the community, get some votes on them, and then bring it to the board for your approval. The one piece, because negotiations are happening, is we know the calendar could potentially be impacted by negotiations. So there'll be some things that we do and kind of make a tentative calendar. We might even get a tentative calendar approved by you guys and then end up making changes after negotiations and depending on how long negotiations take. So as long as that meets your guys's approval in terms of gathering some community feedback before we make a decision, then we'll kind of move forward with that.
Can I,
Go ahead.
we're all, then I'll,
Go ahead.
This will probably be kind of an off the wall comment, but based on a family situation that happened, I wrote in my notes, superintendent, Des, principals, just decide. You're going to get all over the board. And I remember once I took my family to the coast. And well, which restaurant are we gonna go to? And what time are we gonna do this? And I just decided, and it was the best. Because we knew we're gonna watch this video tonight, and we're going here for dinner, and we're going bowling this night, and the boys and my daughters, that was fine. We got along so much
question for you, just
better.
knowing
I
how
don't suppose
busy you
that
are
would work
holding
here.
committees upon committees to do all these kinds of things. Dan's suggestion there, what he gathered sounded like, not that you obviously can go through the process, it seemed to make sense though. If something was established, would it make it so you wouldn't have to hold this? Because no matter what, you're gonna have, you have to hold a committee.
Yeah, it's in
Legally, you have to
both
hold
the
a committee.
contract and is it board
Yeah,
policy
it's a
also, or
board
no, it's
policy.
at least on the contract. It's in the
Oh, okay.
teacher's contract, so.
But at the end of the day, who decides?
Board.
The board.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
How many meetings do you have? And like,
Penny, the last few
Sounds like a
years,
volunteer.
like.
be happy to help decide, but not available.
Yeah, the last couple years, it was like a 2 meeting, committee, maybe 3 if there's something that we get stuck on. And I will say, from my perspective, having teachers at the table was really, like, it's what made the calendar really good. Because they were able to kind of look and say, this is where, like, the big things are things like, when should the trimester end, when should conferences hit? And teachers have really good insight to that, and so their voice, and I'm gonna give a shout out to Karen McGill specifically. Karen McGill had like a calendar brain and was just like, what if we did this? And we ended up with this really nice calendar that really eliminated some weird breaks. It capitalized on where we put things so that families can get long weekends and not have like random days in the middle of the week that kids are missing school. So it's great to have their eyes on it, so we have to
That
have them
makes
at the
sense. There's a
table.
lot more to it than just the start.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. There's other things that come in, but like I said, we're building off the start of the calendars as they currently are. And kind of like, okay, how do we try to make this calendar look as much like those previous calendars as possible? Because we've gotten really good feedback from it. And the feedback we'll get from the staff or from the community is basically like, what we did the last couple of years is we said, what about this calendar do you like? And what do you not like? And then it was like, okay, this helped. We were able to eliminate a few things and move things around.
Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, not a problem.
Most of these things take about 2 meetings. You give them kind of 2 choices. There's pros, cons within the choices. Go back, get some feedback, come back and make it kind of a recommendation. So it's not too exhaustive,
Yeah.
except when you have dilemmas like these where it's like, and I've seen it before where it's a 50-50 and then the board just kind of says, we want this one.
Yeah.
So,
Right,
all right.
that's it.
Anything else? All good? Okay. Let me flip this over.
Over you, Kim.
Wow, Kim's turn.
Wonderful. Thank you all tonight. So yes, I've got a couple of things that to share with you tonight. We have our typical monthly financial report and enrollment reports. So it's interesting that from the numbers perspective, we are officially with this report halfway through the fiscal year. December 31st is the halfway point of our fiscal year. However, I do like to point out that for say expenditures, we're at 35% of our budget. And that is unique because we are only 1/3 of the way through our salaries for the majority of our staff. Majority of our staff receive 12 checks a year. The majority of them get September, October, December, they get the 4, and then there are 8 actually paid in the next 6 months, so. It does sometimes, you look at it, you're at the halfway point, but you're only at the halfway point in certain things. You are halfway on your utilities, you are halfway on some of your other pieces, but your big expenditures will continue to be heavier in the second half. So there really has not been any big swings as far as revenue or expenditures. I am still projecting that revenue will come in over $300,000 above budget. Again, and everyone's gonna be tired of hearing me say this, but right now there's about $265,000 in that number that we don't know if it's ours until May of 2027. So it still puts us, even if we negate that, it still puts us in the positive. We did unfortunately miss the mark with the ending fund balance from the prior school year. That is actually, setting us back a little bit on that positive revenue outlook, but very, very critical to be, keeping that in mind. The other piece, as I'm continuing to dig further and further and further into current year expenditures, looking at past trends, looking at what we know is coming on the horizon, we really are projecting a real favorable outcome on the expenditure side and projecting that we could come in $900,000 or more under budget on expenditures, which is an incredible testament to a lot of work people are doing to really think about our expenditures, look at what we can do to reduce non-essential spending. We've been able to save through some vacancies, which of course then does unfortunately create a little bit more strain on our staff, but as you know, vacancies and turnover happen. So some of that is from there. Right now, I am very nervously, because there's a lot of unknowns, but projecting a preliminary ending fund balance could be upwards of $2.5 million. We budgeted a $1.276 million ending fund balance. So that would be absolutely incredible if we end the year with $1.2 million more than we thought we would have in the bank, is essentially what that comes down to.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
How's our transportation and what does that give us for ending fund balance percentage that we've been our goal for?
So those are two great questions.
You can say pass, I didn't give them to you ahead of time.
Our transportation costs are projected to end the year in the $2.7 million range this year. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword because that is a significant jump from last year. It's also significantly more than we budgeted. However, it may end up getting us that additional 10% in revenue from the state. So there is a very weird, if you will, kind of almost contradiction between your increased costs and you may end up actually receiving more funds from the state on that. We've looked at expenditures and have not yet been able to identify a lot of areas for reductions. We are continuing to look at routes, continuing to look at options, but there are a lot of regulations over busing students to, you know, certain areas. And then of course, specialized transportation is a large portion of our costs. In terms of, so you asked about the transportation, then you asked about the goal for the fund balance. We're something we're going to need to discuss because many districts have a board policy, DBDB, or BD.
No, you're right.
DBDB, sorry. North Marion has not adopted that policy that outlines in policy what ending fund balance needs to be. So that is something that we've been discussing, that we would like to see some clarification on that and have that be something that we continue to look into so that there is clear guidance at a policy level of what that ending fund balance can be. Obviously, our budget priorities and stuff are to, not to speak for the board, but understand we want long-term stability and we want to make sure we're not cash poor. We want to make sure we can weather, you know, some of the concerns that are coming up. But as far as a policy, there is not currently a board adopted policy that outlines the actual number.
So we can bring a sample policy at the next work session, have a first reading in 2 weeks, and then have that be for consideration for adoption, you know, in March prior to the budget time period. So, yeah.
Can you speak to how that would affect our credit rating?
So the policy provides you the guideline, and somebody could then maybe look at that and say you're in compliance or not in compliance with that. I can speak to past practice that when a budget is adopted or approved that does not align with policy, there may need to be a acknowledgement, if you will, by the board that we are approving a budget that does not meet our policy. A common number is between 8 and 10% ending fund balance, often referred to of general fund expenditures, although I have seen some say of total budgeted expenditures. Those would be some of the discussions that we could have, but GFOA general, I'm not gonna even go there, but the GFOA generalized suggestion is 8 to 10% of general fund expenditures. So, you know, in that case, I'm gonna misspeak without looking at it right off. We would be $2.5 million would be short of a 10% ending fund balance even, if we just literally didn't touch any of that.
Well,
So-
the reason I ask is when we sold our bonds, we sold them at a premium because the ability.
The group had the.
Yeah, I was gonna say the ability of the
exactly.
district to repay
Yep.
its
Yeah.
obligations was very good.
Maintain-
And that made a favorable.
Yep.
That made for favorable
Yeah.
bond sale for us,
Mm-hmm.
and so, I just didn't know if that factors into it, if we add into policy or.
Correct. Maintaining a adequate ending fund balance is very critical to your Moody's and Ford's ratings, and maintaining that higher rating. Yes, the school district pool, the 2018 Coors pool got an incredible rate. And, you know, that is due to collectively having really good ability to repay, obviously. So when those ending fund balances get lower, I will tell you from experience, you get a lot more calls from Moody's and have a lot more, conversations with them, and your bondholders are watching, right? They are watching, so an ending fund balance not only protects the district, the staff, the taxpayers, it actually can pay back the district through that improved credit rating, so
Yeah.
great question.
Thanks.
Anything else on this topic?
Enrollment.
Apologize. The enrollment report has been updated for you as well. We actually saw a little uptick in our enrollment after the break. I have a separate tracker I've been running actually by week, and it's been very interesting to just see the movement. But it is very typical of what we would expect to see. My projection, based on prior year trends, was that we would be ending this year at 1556. I'm hoping my number is going to be there, but this is absolutely, these enrollment figures are absolutely critical to the budget development that we're doing. The state funds schools on a 2-year look back. They will look both at your current year enrollment and prior year enrollment and fund you on the higher of the two. So in a situation like North Berrien and many districts, we are always being funded on the prior year's number. So unless enrollment turns around, I would expect that the 2025-26 enrollment numbers are what are gonna be used to build our 26-27 budget. Just as right now, we are being funded on our 2024-25 enrollment. So that's extended ADMW is the terminology they use for that. Biggest piece I would like to, I guess, put out there is, currently the trend data I'm seeing is that North Berrien's enrollment is at a rate of decline, outpacing that of the statewide average. So that is a concern. If all districts decline at the same rate, your share of the state school fund should remain fairly constant. If one district declines faster than another, or a district grows, your share of that pie does start to become slivered. So that is something that we're really focused on is what is going to keep families here at North Berrien, attract more families here, and what can we do to let everybody find out how great it is here and make sure they're choosing us.
Any questions? All right, moving on.
All right. So speaking of budget, we've had 3 former budget committee members express interest in being reappointed to the budget committee. And so on the agenda outlines the 3 names that were applied. And so we got a couple different motions there for you. We've got an easy motion that you could do all 3 in one motion, or you have the option of appointing them individually.
I would entertain a motion or motions.
I'll move to reappoint the following budget committee members: Brett Selnow to position 3, Jay Jones to position 4, Jim Yonley to position 5. Each will serve a 3-year term, July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2028. Is that correct? Okay, yeah.
Second.
We're gonna first and second, any discussion?
Does that leave all positions filled?
That
That,
fills all 7 positions.
yes.
correct?
I'll just make a statement that I would encourage the budget committee members who are appointed to show up on budget committee. So, no other discussion? We'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right. So I think I've got several little reports here. So I'd like to introduce and bring up Rich Davis. He's our insurance agent with MAPS. And he's been working with us on this policy, technically an AR, but a policy related to the use of alcohol on campus. And so last month I brought a policy for you. I'm not bringing that policy back for adoption yet because I want to make sure that we talk through all the aspects of concern. And so linked on the agenda is KGAR 2, use of alcohol on campus. And appreciate both Kim and Rich's work, because Rich has been working closely with PACE on this. And one of the PACE legal attorneys in about a 24-hour period said, here you go. And so what you have before you is written by one of the members of the PACE legal team, along with Rich, Kim, and myself, working through this. And so, but before we, if you dive into that policy, I did want, Rich to be able to explain even maybe more to what his work and other entities has been, any concerns that we've alleviated through this policy, and then to answer any questions about it. So Rich, I'll maybe turn it over to you for a little bit.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I've been working with a variety of different groups and organizations, and how they go about operating is very key, especially when alcohol becomes involved. So whenever alcohol is brought to the attention, I try not to say, no, don't do it. But if you are going to move forward with it, make sure that you're going to do it correctly, so that you are protecting the organization as best you can. I've been working with anybody from the end user to people that actually distribute the beer themselves or alcohol themselves. So as you're going through this and determining how you want to move forward, if this is going to make sense for the organization, the important thing to think about is, how is that risk going to affect us, and how can we mitigate that risk? And I think when we started, Dan provided me with an outline of some suggestions for things, and I came back with a few suggestions of my own to expand that. And then as I was talking to the risk department with PACE, the underwriting department with PACE's, I don't actually talk to the legal department, I just notify them. And they end up talking to whoever for legal reasons. We always want to make sure that we are operating in a manner that is going to be clear for everybody. I think the most important thing when you're dealing with these situations where alcohol is going to be present is that you have a clear parameter of what's involved, how is it going to be monitored and used. And my first opinion is that you do not do it yourselves. You don't allow other people to come in and do it themselves, that you force them, if they're going to come in, to use an outside firm that is in the business of doing such, already has the controls in place and know what they're doing. Makes it very simple, very easy. I don't know how far.
I think that's probably a good pausing point right there, and whether you have questions regarding the policy that's still being constructed, or to Rich, myself, Kim. My goal is eventually here, maybe within the next month, to take all of your feedback, bring back the actual board policy this AR and eventually an application that we can present to you for policy adoption, so we can move this forward, because as you know, what's driving this is the request to have our baseball facility rented for a professional baseball game in which the owners would, in order to make it profitable for them, would need to be able to have alcohol sales.
Anyone?
Is it just for that one event, or is it, could this lead to others? I mean, I just don't understand why you need alcohol at a public event anyway, it just go somewhere else.
Well, I think, great question. I think at this point, it's just this event. I do think that in conversations, one thing that's unique about North Marion is we don't have a lot of venue opportunities for groups that may want to provide even support for the school district. So there's been discussion about, there used to be an auction, and that was oftentimes held on campus, that alcohol was present. And, for a lot of our entities that, are, larger districts with bigger booster clubs can oftentimes rent facilities that are, that I think for our groups would be cost prohibitive. So it's not necessarily that I have a vision for that, but that question, as I've been working through this policy, has come up about, should be great to have a foundation that could, not have to pay a rental fee for a space to be able to also use our commons and things of that nature. So I'm just being transparent in the conversations I've had as far as what the sole purpose of this is to be able to rent our baseball facility to a professional team in June.
What kind of professional team?
They're the Marion Berries, and they're the equivalent of like the Portland Pickles and that group.
Have you guys ever been to Portland Pickles game?
No, but I hear they're wildly fun.
Strippers and,
What?
yeah,
No.
there's.
Well, I did go see the Marion Berries play at Chemeketa, and they actually played the Berries, and that none of that happened.
No, they do have a night like that, so. You're just inviting that kind of stuff in, so.
I will ask a question. So say there was an auction, because I have attended the auction in the past. And I don't know if this is for you or Dan or whoever. So say there was a basket donation with hard liquor in it, because I believe I have seen one of those. I have good old auction, so I'm not sure. But would that be acceptable since it was a closed bottle, or does it have to be? Because I see the
Maybe
hard
there's
liquor, like, I just wanna make sure,
prohibited from being consumed, maybe it's just some wordsmithing.
yeah, so I just wanna be clear, because if we're
Are you
thinking
asking the question from a coverage standpoint or a risk standpoint?
both, like, so if somebody was to donate a basket, I'm thinking
Or
of
like
a liquor store that we know of, to donate a basket, then would that basket be okay to have on campus for an auction or not?
From a coverage standpoint, coverage would apply. If
Okay.
claim arose arising from the alcohol, the biggest concern, of course, is somebody consuming it and then driving away and getting into an accident and hurting somebody.
Okay,
And then a claim filed against us because they alleged that it was consumed here and we did not take the proper care in making
Okay.
sure that we did serve an intoxicated individual. So from a coverage standpoint, it's there. From a risk standpoint, I would suggest that we just simply go to the protocols and plan of the district. I'm not gonna tell you what to do.
right,
What I'm gonna do is make whatever you're doing, I'm gonna make a lot of suggestions on ways to protect yourself.
okay,
Or do it in a manner that is going to be less risky, shall we say.
okay. Perfect, yeah, that's what I was kind of. All right, I'm thinking like 5 years ahead.
Any other questions?
One last thing, if the policy, would the policy have to be purchased through the school or?
Policy currently exists.
Oh, it does.
Okay, our policy will
But-
extend coverage.
But the alcohol part, I mean, is there like a writer?
No, coverage applies,
Okay,
okay? And it's on there now. We have liquor liability coverage in the event that a claim does arise. The question is, will that continue depending upon how we continue to operate our business. Cause if we were to do things that where, say we allowed a third party to come in and just serve the alcohol themselves and didn't control it at all, that creates a very high or a much higher possibility of a claim arising against us, because we're not controlling. What we want to do is make sure that if we want to do this, if it makes sense, that we want to control it in a manner that is going to lessen that risk.
And I'm sure they have to have their own insurance as well, right?
Absolutely.
Both.
We would require them to bring in a third party that supplied the alcohol and supplied the servers that met the OLCC guidelines and all the licensing that is required. They would also have to have at least $2 million of coverage for both general liability
Yeah.
insurance as well as liquor liability insurance, and make us an additional insured on their policy, so that if a claim did arise against us, because we have the big dollars and the lawyer used our name, if it was their fault, their policy would step up and defend us and pay out on our behalf to the extent it was their fault. And if they brought in somebody and it arose from their operations, then they should be defending us and paying out on our behalf anyway.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Is it more of a community decision then, based on how we use our school? Or is it more of a board?
Well, it's more of a superintendent decision in terms of how we would manage this. So part of having the board policy to allow the superintendent to do what I'm doing here and developing rules and applications and processes. So essentially, when the policy would get brought before you that would say it's allowable under the superintendent's guidance, essentially, then that would be allowing me to move forward with this project for June. Or event, I should say.
I would also
So it's not really a community type of decision. It would be more of the superintendent developing guidelines, application procedures, and ensuring that to the things that Rich was talking about, the levels of insurance are in place before the event gets approved.
Yeah, I would also add that this is an application for an outside party to be able to apply to be able to use the facility. And it is limited to a 4-hour period of time. And it also would need to meet our requirements that we've placed into it. And then, of course, it's always up to, I think, Dan, to decide whether it can even go forward.
Is there a definition on what food is?
I believe OLCC has requirements. Yes.
It's very specific.
It's very specific.
I just wanna make
Protein,
sure.
carb, there has to be a
Yeah,
certain mix
okay.
of-
And that's
of
where
stuff,
I
yeah.
think your third party suggestion was
Yeah.
part of that.
Because they know that what they have to do and what they need to do in order to meet the licensing requirements.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, Merle.
Mark?
I wonder, would I have permission to interject a few comments that I thought about before, and they relate, I think, to what we're hearing, although I've heard additional things now that probably affect my. Is that all right?
Sure.
Yes.
I speak to the proposal to amend policy KGAR 1. It was first approved in 1991. With subsequent readoptions, it has been in place nearly 35 years. The board from the beginning chose to restrict from the district campus certain substances, all of them drugs and all of them addictive. In approving this policy, the board, I think, upheld a principle and made a statement regarding these substances. Alcohol, illegal drugs, marijuana, narcotics, and tobacco pose harm, adults and students alike, and are illegal to the latter, age 21 and above accepted. And so I pose the question, do we compromise the principle and soften the statement by making an exception to it? The example we set for both students and community is the primary motivation for a nay vote on the matter in question. Now, this quotation is not original with me, but it seems germane to these few comments to the board. We need to disagree in order to debate, and we need to debate in order to decide. Some further and secondary considerations as we debate this proposal. Because a deed is lawful does not render it inherently good. Adults, as well as those below the age of majority, are subject to addition and its accompanying detriments within the family, in financial matters, and personal conduct. Number two, alcohol consumption impairs cognitive function. For those consuming alcohol, behavior will change, both at the venue and afterward. Those leaving our facility after consuming alcohol will not all have designated drivers and may endanger themselves and others on the roads. The expressed need for additional insurance and legal liability contracts attest to awareness of such dangers. Number three, our core mission and legislative charge is to provide for the education of the students of our district. This proposal will not augment academic achievement. And four, previous discussion among board members leads me to question whether there will be any substantial revenue received pursuant to the policy exception as it is proposed. Only time, of course, will tell. In conclusion, while it may be enticing to anticipate more revenue accruing to the Booster Club and to athletic programs generally, which I do not begrudge, and while it may please those with a vested interest in and enjoyment of baseball, this is an option that for liability concerns and more personally for conscience sake, I choose not to endorse. One last minute thought though. The district could offer our facility at a lesser rental, alcohol-free. Let the first time trial prove whether it be profitable for the Marionberries. I could endorse this option, and it would reveal whether baseball or alcohol is the more effective advertiser.
Thank you. Any other questions? For Mr. Davis? And I'll just go on the record and say I support this, not because I actively drink nightly or any other thing, but because I think it's an adult decision. And I do believe that our school needs revenue. And I will rarely take off my chair hat and put on my fundraising hat. And it's been a struggle, to say the least, to fundraise for just bare minimum sports in our area. To the point where I've pleaded with good friends to write me checks because students have already been committed to tournaments. And that's not unique to the one I fundraise for. That's a burden that companies are facing, a hardship and are not willing as much to commit overall. And I think that this would give us an option to bring back the auction, which used to glean $25,000 to $35,000 to be help with the all-night senior parties. There's only so many cans that you can collect to navigate that and donuts you can sell. So if we're have the opportunity to bring people in from outside of our district to help with those fundraising capabilities, I personally support that. So I'll put my chair hat back on. Blake?
Good friend that I work with runs the parochial school in St. Paul, and they had theirs this last weekend and raised $275,000. Sometimes I know we say we're in a small community, but St. Paul is smaller than our community, so just a thought for fun.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. So Rich, you're free to go. No one's gonna think the less of you if you walk out, so.
And Rich,
you very
in the
much.
future, Dan, tell me when we have a guest, and I will move my agenda.
Oh, no, that's fine. I told him this was about where he was gonna be
Okay.
at, so I
It's all
kind of
good.
prepped him.
All
I
right,
just wanna be here to make sure that whatever direction anybody goes, that I'm here as a resource.
So
Just
tell
to
me
help.
again, you're from Maps or you're from Pace?
I'm from Maps Insurance Services. I
Okay.
use PACE as our avenue for insurance services.
Okay.
Okay?
That's who we, use. I ran the auction
Yeah,
For
basically, I'm an
decade.
independent agent.
and we always got our liquor license or our liquor insurance through Maps. That was, I mean,
Mhm.
it was just, that was part of it. So when you said you're from Maps, I'm like, well, I've been to your office numerous times.
Yeah. Yes.
thank you so much.
You're
for
very
being
welcome.
here.
Thanks,
All right,
All right.
it's true.
Yeah. So, we conducted the Youth Truth Survey again this year, and, we continue to have good, participation amongst staff and amongst students. We did not, advertise it or promote it as, vigorously as we did last year, and we, with parents, and we saw definitely a decline there. We're not gonna take as deep a dive as we did last year, but I really do want to, you know, we do spend a lot of time promoting this. And so I do think it's worthwhile to spend a little bit and talk about some bigger picture results from this. And so, we can just go ahead and go to, so percent positive, there, when you. As Des knows, you can spend a lot of time rabbit trailing on this survey and get as narrow and focused as you want to. But I've also, and they give you kind of 3 data points. They give you percent positive, which is basically people responding with that 4 or 5 positive rating idea. They also give you just the raw score. So was it, you know, on a 1 to 5, did people average like, you know, 3.25 or whatnot? When I show people that score, there's a tendency to kind of minimize the difference between what a 3.25 and a 3.75 is. And so I avoid that one just because I think people are looking to kind of, well, that's not too far off. I think the percent positive chart is a good one, and I also think the percentile ranking versus another identifier, whether it's nationwide, all schools in Oregon, all schools in our region, schools of like size, I think those are worthwhile data points to explore. So, this first chart, if you can see it, is when it says elementary, if we're looking at the student column, that is only the intermediate school, because Youth Truth starts at 3rd grade. I am gonna skip over the family column just because of the low participation rate. So we're really gonna be looking at these at the 1st and the 3rd column where we had high participation rates. So, and the other thing I wanna highlight is that this is perception data that would. Your number one thing you're trying to do is just be curious on this. I want to know more about fill in the blank and then start traveling down to figure out what am I most curious about that's leading to these scores, whether scores that are up or scores that are down. So, not gonna take a ton of time, but you can see most of at the intermediate school, the scores went up in these generalized areas. And we will show you some of a very few, but some of the questions that might have been under some of these broader subjects. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. To already there, so middle school. And where you see the negative or positive, you probably already figured that out, that's changed from the previous year.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you remind me what like culture questions are?
Things like, I feel positive about my school, teachers treat me with respect, I'm treated with respect from my teachers by or opposite for the teachers, I'm treated by my administrators or from the students, things along those lines.
How could the staff have 106% response rate?
Yeah,
And some multiple,
probably some multiple entries possibly, also, potentially a number that we gave them, we sent into Youth Truth ahead of time, and then we got more staff,
It's
So-
probably more of that.
yeah.
We give them an estimate and then,
Yeah, you're good, it was just.
yeah.
And if not that we want to do too long, but if you did want to know, I could go in and get some of those particular questions. So if you can see, at the middle school, definitely you see some declines in the staff numbers for sure. Not so much in the student column, and then if we go to the high school.
And this was done in October
This
again,
was December.
December.
Last year it was in, I believe, November.
Yes.
Was there a question about culture, questions?
So,
Yeah, that's the one I asked, because I couldn't remember.
As respect, but there's a category here expressly for respect. and
okay, here are all
I had that
the,
Same question.
so here are all the ones for the high school related to culture. For staff. So the high school staff survey. The questions regarding culture are. Information about school policies is disseminated to staff clearly. Discipline at my school is fair. My school communicates a clear direction for the future. I feel informed about important decisions regarding my school. My school is managed effectively. My school sets high expectations for students. My school creates a positive work environment. My school runs smoothly. My school's employees are committed to the success of the school. My school's policies are administered fairly and consistently. So those are all the statements that made up the staff culture survey for the high school.
And what about the students?
Sure.
Thanks, Marl, you're reading my mind over there.
Oh, man.
Well, that's where it was low. It's the students in particular.
See, I love this because what you're doing is demonstrating, I am curious about this, so. So there were 4 questions that make up the culture summary measure, and then they have some related questions, so. The 4 main questions for the culture summary were discipline in this school is fair. My classmates want to do well in school. Adults at my school treat students with respect. Students from my school treat adults with respect. So those were the 4 main ones. And then they have others. Adults at my school respect people from different backgrounds. I feel safe during school. And then, are you part of clubs, teams? Are you part of, so I'm not sure. I mean, that's the depth of Youth Truth is, it is a very in-depth. Survey tool,
And we just do this once a year, right?
correct?
So for example, in the middle school, it says staff, and it says 40% school safety, so only 40% of the staff feel safe at school, is that what I'm reading?
That had a positive response to that, yes.
That the students feel safe or the staff feel safe?
That one is the staff.
That one is the
That's the
staff.
call.
So only 40% of the staff feel safe at school is what they're saying.
40% scored it a 4 or 5.
Sure, but that's,
Yeah.
Which you can see was also a percentage drop of 47.
Yeah.
So,
because you would think this, that, if they all participated and they took it, that's an interesting.
What does that mean though? School
Yeah.
safety? Does that mean like I'm in a safe environment to
That's what I'm
share my
asking, yeah, I
personal
don't-
beliefs or is
Sure,
that
did-
like I'm?
no, this is, you guys are doing the right thing. This is your,
Because it
that's
could
the
be-
number one thing is you get curious and then you drill down to go, So like if I was the principal of that and I would look, then I would go into what are the three main questions that lead to that is students are safe from bullying at my school. Okay. So, at my school, there are clear rules for students against hurting other people.
There you go, okay.
Okay, and I feel safe at school. So if I were the principal seeing that kind of result, I would go, which of those is the lowest?
Yeah.
You know, so.
With a 47% drop.
Yeah.
So, and the biggest drop, okay, so the biggest drop is at my school, there are clear rules for students against hurting other people. That was the number one drop in that, on that school safety. One for the middle school,
On staff.
from the staff.
So are the principals taking these responses and then addressing the concerns?
Yeah, so I'm just being totally honest, that's something that we just have not had a lot of time to work on. That's something I wanna tackle in March. I know at least one of our principals is, I mean, they're all looking at it. I've seen the work of one principal to go, I want to really dig into some of these scores that dropped. Just between strategic plan, principal hiring, so we've just got a little bit to do, but I do wanna help guide principals through this, so. So that they can, I mean, not that they can't do it on themselves, but really that way we're doing it systematically as all four principals doing this work.
There's some significant drops at the middle school.
Yeah,
I think the other thing, and this connects to what we've heard from the association last month when they presented too, is we know that like there's a high degree of stress this year, right? With the layoffs and different things. We had a lot of administrative changes this year as well, specifically at the middle school and the primary school and the high school. Only one building had the same leader. And we know that staff already are telling their association, like, we're feeling this degree of stress, right? And so we know that these are also impacted by those pieces, like, one, the questions start to become, are there specific things that are happening that led to that score? Or is there a general feeling of stress that's impacting how I do everything? Right, both and. So important questions to ask.
so, looked at the high school, then the other things that you can do with Youth Truth is you can look for places where Youth Truth identifies alignment. Now, if you were to ask me a lot of questions around alignment, I'd probably struggle pretty quickly. But it is curious where they say there's some alignment in these areas, which, again, you could probably dig down into to figure out, why do we have alignment in those areas? So, so we have the elementary one, and again, for students, just to reiterate, that's just the intermediate school. And I don't know if you can see those questions on there. So.
Do you guys see that, or do you need it turned? Are you good? I've got it. You got it.
It's here.
Okay, all right.
I got it here.
Okay. Better? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's some averages from schools that are maybe in a similar size as our school or something to help.
You can change the comparison. So like if you were to go to looking at like the percentile rankings, you could choose the demographic and type of school to compare yourself to. So.
Has anyone done that at all?
We have not done that, yeah. And that is, something that, having done this, looked at the survey 2 years, I think the one thing that I think that is in comparison to other districts in the percentile ranking, we're consistently lower than a lot of other schools, and I just know that you know, this is a great place with great people, and I think with a little bit of focused work, we could see some of these scores improve. Cause when you compare to other, when I have looked at those comparison districts, our percentile ranking is below in most cases, so.
Why do you think we didn't have any family except for like 100?
8%.
We did not promote it like we did last year,
I was
where,
gonna
you know, I
say,
did it, where I did a video and I was just pounding it. I think principal set out a few reminders, but it was kind of more buried in there, weekly reminders versus a specific push for youth truth, so.
I remember promoting it a bunch last year and I think you did too, and
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, I think I had you guys putting it out on Facebook and everywhere, so we just really didn't, we were not gonna do the youth truth this survey this year because of costs. And then we were able to kind of negotiate to get something that was affordable, which also then pushed it into December, so.
Gosh, this is such good data, like I love numbers and drilling down and figuring out the why and. Beyond that, it's really nice knowing that there's gonna be some action behind it, and I'd love to continue to be able to. Do this year over year and promote it well for this fall. Cause I know we have such a great place to work and send our kids and, I just wish our numbers were a little bit better, which makes me wonder. What? Is there space on here for kind of open-ended, like for students to share further thoughts? Staff to share further
Yeah.
thoughts, so do we have any of that feedback that we can say, this is why, okay.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily draw conclusions on the open-ended stuff.
Yeah.
You certainly can learn a lot.
Yeah.
So, and I say that because I would never draw a conclusion on an isolated statement.
Mhm.
Like, you get someone out there grinding on something, just like I don't look at Facebook and make life decisions on it.
What?
But, yeah. I mean, you can learn a lot by anecdotal statements. I would base decisions on data like this that says, so like, just take the middle school one where we said, why was this low? And we drilled it down to one statement that said the rules are not clear enough and it's resulting in these things. So that's where you start basing decisions to go, like if I were, in that situation, I did this once with a different survey tool as a principal to go, okay, based on these things, I need to know more about why you're saying professional development here is not good. And then got some feedback and said, based on this feedback, here's the 3 or 5 action things I'm gonna do differently. And then I just kind of kept doing the same survey questions internally, probably to the point they got tired of me asking. And then by the time that next survey came around a year later, those results went up because you told me I wasn't doing these 5 things. I started doing these 5 things. Am I doing better? Which is really no different than the surveys you get on businesses that you do business with. You tell them the right thing enough times, you're gonna get better service. So.
How long does the survey take to complete? Just for myself, if I have
For someone like
the
you,
length of the survey will dictate how much time I spend. If it starts getting long, it's gonna get real quick in a hurry for me, because I'm not gonna.
well, I don't wanna put her on the spot, but Lindsay, how long did it take you as a staff member? Do you remember?
no.
Okay,
I mean, are we talking half hour?
It's like a 20 minutes.
Yeah,
20
minutes.
25 minutes maybe,
Hmm, Okay.
Yeah.
depending on how much thought you really want to spend on it.
Yeah.
and for staff and students, I do think that it's valuable. Students are kind of captive audience, they do it and with 100%, I think that's, we're pretty close to, that's pretty reliable. I think the staff, it's obviously 100% or 106% with the carrot of lunch and other things for them. So I do think that, and I think while we haven't done as good a job of circling back, I know, and part of that's the administrative turnover, but if you were to look at the intermediate school, they actually changed how they brought kids in from recess based on this survey. When staff were saying like kids rules aren't being enforced, and when the principal drills down to say it's worse right after lunch. So they changed how they brought kids back in from recess. So those are the types of things, when you can do those little moves, those can help and definitely show the staff that we listen to you through the survey.
I think the final piece too is, we know that there's already a plan to use this as part of our strategic plan. There are tons of questions, we could give big culture-based questions, or like the big category questions. We wanna increase our score in safety, we wanna increase our score in this category. And we could get into those specific questions, so if we're talking about culture and community, we can ask, okay, let's look at these questions and let's see if we can move the dial on these 4 questions based on the strategic initiatives that we're working on. So we're gonna get that also and really put it out there as a way to be holding ourselves accountable to this data.
Yeah, I just echo what Jenny says. Like, I think this data is better than a lot of data that we've seen in the past. No offense to anybody who's brought data forth, but this just seems more useful, user friendly. And I like that we can drill down and kind of like look at it from a. I do really think though that, myself included, we can do a better job at getting family partnership.
Yeah, I think, I've second year in a row, and you've always been more interactive on this survey than just the other data. Because I think when you start reading those questions, that's real to you as far as when you're starting to look at data that you're not excited to see, you're not happy to see, and drill down and go, this is actionable stuff. So. There.
The next are a little more, it's easy.
Is it budgeted to do again next year?
Well, we haven't built the budget yet, so
I mean,
conceptually.
in theory, the goal is to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
basically, when we didn't get it this year, partly it was some change in the WESD and how they were funding it. And when Youth Truth directly reached out and said, we wanna make this happen for you, we think this is an important tool. So they gave us a killer deal, and then they said, we will work with you for the next couple years to make sure that this is attainable.
And we didn't do something within our WSD budget to cover what was gonna be our portion. So it wasn't like we increased the cost. We just said, we're not gonna do this thing, we're gonna do this over here. So, yeah. There's probably more we could go through. You've got the slide. I think maybe moving into we've got a few more things to get through, plus an exec session, so.
Yep. Move
All
along.
right, thank you. Strategic plan updates. So. The first several slides are just what we're I'm just adding to the previous presentation, so we can just kind of keep going. And so this is the new information. So back up one slide just real quick. So this was kind of the teaser last 2 weeks or last time we were with you. So then we've sent out some possibilities of performance indicators for our planning team, and these are some of the top ones. So go ahead, the next one. So these are I picked the top 4 vote getters from the planning team on student achievement. So just leave those up there. These were the top 2.
Love that one on the left.
And the next 2. Yeah, the one, Crystal, you referenced that first one was definitely the highest vote getter. The next one in the graduation post-secondary pathway, those were the tied for, I guess, second, and then close the achievement gaps was right behind that one. So these aren't decided upon, because we're meeting again with the planning team on Thursday. We just did that, we gave them homework and said, give us some direction, and these were the ones, so. Performance indicators on climate and culture. So again, I think, to the question about, making Youth Truth a part of what we're doing, I think that part of it is when you build it into your strategic plan, then it starts becoming the thing that matters. So I think part of this year, working through that strategic plan is taking some time, but now youth truth and other things become the work. So, all right. Because if we do these things, you'll see those culture scores go up.
Mhm.
All right, and then these are the top two for talent development. But yeah, this is just me keeping you in the loop. We have our next meeting this Thursday. I'm sure Des and I will be ready for it. We haven't had enough on our plate. But we're just keeping you in the loop of where this is, where this train is headed.
All right, my turn.
Yeah.
Okay, it's that time of year again where we talk about superintendent evaluation. The timeline and the model. Thank you, Diane, for all your energy and effort towards it. We're gonna do this similar that we did last year, where Dan will give a pre-evaluation and report. February 23rd at the work session. That will cover some of the topics that we're gonna use the same OSBA framework. Ours will look just a smidge different based on the feedback we got from the community and staff when we did the hiring. The other thing is, so February 23rd, Dan will give a report to the board. Then I will send out a form to your North Marion email for you to complete. It's anonymous. The form, I will then edit it. And again, it's completely anonymous. I have no idea. So if you don't complete the form, I'm just gonna be randomly sending out like I'm missing forms. So I will put probably a hard deadline on that. I'm actually just gonna give you a deadline right now. And then I'm gonna put it in the email. So the 23rd, he's doing it. So I'm gonna give you a hard deadline of March 1st. So when you see that evaluation come across, it needs to be complete by March 1st. Then we'll meet executive session to have a discussion with Dan, and then we will go over it, the superintendent evaluation report in the April 13th meeting. So again, your work is by March 1st to send the completed form back. And I will not send that out until after he presents his pre-evaluation to the board. Any questions? All right.
Great, thank you.
Cool. All right, I guess I do need to read this long one. Okay, let me read this into the record first. We're gonna adjourn our regular business meeting, but before we do, I'm gonna read our executive session. The board will now meet in executive session according to ORS 192.6602D to conduct deliberations with persons designated to carry on labor negotiations, collective bargaining for UNME according to ORS 192.6602D. Content discussed in executive session is confidential except as provided by law. Board members and the media are instructed not to disclose information obtained in executive session except for when specifically authorized to do so or as required by law. Members of the media may attend executive sessions except in these specific instances. Deliberations with persons conducting labor negotiations, expulsion hearings, or those pertaining to confidential student medical records and litigation involving the news media. Policy BDC executive sessions. The board will not be taking any action on the content discussed tonight and will adjourn following the executive session. So again, we are adjourning the regular business meeting at 7:32 PM and going into executive session. And we will take a 2-minute break to clear the room.